Hi, I'm Daniel, and welcome to part 2 of the Ultimate Civic Restomod. In this episode, we'll be continuing the clay modeling of the dashboard by adding the center air vent and the AC controls.
Hey, what's up?
And then we'll modify the center console to fit the new wireless charger and parking brake, as well as sculpting the sides where the center console meets the dashboard. If you haven't seen the previous videos yet, I highly recommend you check those out, and I'll have those linked down below. I've already got the clay softening on the roast oven. All that's left is to get to work. With the screen in place as an alignment reference, we can begin sculpting the center stack, starting with the air vent. A chunk of clay gets flattened and smushed onto the support to create the base the vent will attach to. A line is marked on the clay above the vent that indicates where I should carve. And then the clay is trimmed until the vent's able to sit at the correct angle. A wood block is placed behind the vent piece to act as a spacer. Once I'm happy with the angle, the clay gets mushed around the bottom and sides to secure the piece. More clay is added to completely surround the vent and create a gap between the vent and where the climate control piece will be. Then we can continue by sculpting the clay on the rest of the upper dashboard. The goal for the clay in this episode isn't to create a finished model. I don't even know what the dashboard will look like. I don't have any drawings or computer models. It's being designed purely off of vibes. But I know I want to keep some of that 90s, 2000s around this, while also making it more modern. If any of you have design feedback or suggestions, I'd love to hear them in the comments below. To add the climate control, the clay between where it will sit and the vent is shaved until it's even on both ends. Then, clay is built up from the support until the climate control is able to be positioned how I'd like it. Checking the fit occasionally and using the piece to help flatten the clay. So far, I've used more clay than I thought I would. Hopefully I have enough. Finally, the piece can be added to the dash and held in place with more clay. I know the dashboard itself is level, and I'd like for all the pieces to be level too. So, let's check. Screen first. Is it level? No. Okay. What about the others? The vent is level. So is the climate control. Great. Just the screen needs adjusting. That can easily be done by adding a little bit of clay to the low side. Now, let's check again.
Looks level to me.
While I was checking to see if everything was level, I noticed the vent was sitting at a strange angle compared to the display and the climate control. So I had to dig the piece out. Add more clay to correct the tilt. Then reclay the whole area to fix what was removed. Now, more detail is added to the center stack to further define its shape. After that, I can move downward to carve the chin flat. Underneath the center stack, a lump is formed to represent where the USB ports will go. And then I can move on to shaping the surrounding area. As for the console pocket, it's going to need some modification too. The back wall is cut off and the edges are filed smooth. Setting the console pocket aside for a moment, we can sculpt a rough draft of the parking brake trim panel. Strips of clay get tightly molded around the switch mock-up, except for the front of the switch. It gets a clay pocket for your fingers, so you can pull up on it. Once the piece is roughed out, I can add it to the console pocket piece, where the mechanical handbrake would normally be. Then more clay is added to get the desired shape. And then the camera overheated and stopped recording without me noticing. Awesome, thanks camera. But I finished the part and here it is. The mock wireless charger with a phone is placed into the center pocket to gauge how large the new space will need to be. A clay support made from wire coat hanger is screwed to the center console support, bent to the appropriate shape and size, and then it gets clipped to the clay support wire above. Now a wire cage is slid on top of the other support and clipped in place too. Yeah, I'm not sure if the USB ports work here, so it's going away. Yeah, I think that's better. Clay can then be added all over the inside of the console pocket. Once we reach the top of the pocket, the clay can be blended with the surrounding area to become one piece. With the clay laid down, we can now completely flatten the bottom of the console pocket, making it nearly perfectly smooth. The wireless charger is positioned at the bottom, and its outline is traced onto both the clay and the plastic. Then the clay is carved out, and the plastic is cut. And we're left with a nice looking wireless charger. I want the center console to sweep up towards the dashboard on the passenger side. To do that, a hole is drilled just large enough for a wire form to fit into. The other end is put in a channel carved into the center stack. And backfilled with clay, making sure it's tightly packed. And the console side profile can be built up around the form. So I realized I never fully explained what my end goal is for this dash. Once the clay is finished and I have a dashboard I'm happy with, I'll use my 3D scanner to get a high quality scan of the entire surface, including the center console. And using a reverse modeling software, I plan to turn the scan into a high quality CAD surface, which, using other software, I can then split into individual components, add thickness and all of the other necessary features to assemble it all. Then all of the parts will be 3D printed and finished or upholstered. But it needs to be modeled at as high quality as possible because imperfections will be picked up by the 3D scanner and could be translated into the final product if I don't catch them. Over on the driver's side, we can build clay up the side to create space for the start button. But I didn't think it looked very good there, so I scrapped it. And pivoted to the transition from console to dashboard. I'm going for a slight curve up to the dash rather than the large slope the passenger side has. Hey, that looks pretty nice. Let's give that start button another shot. Still looks weird. Anyways, after adding my final 4 pounds of clay into the warmer, I continued shaping the passenger side. Getting to the point where I'm satisfied with each part of the dashboard is time consuming, sometimes taking hours or even days to reach a design I'm satisfied with. It's a seemingly never-ending process of carving, smoothing, smearing, and laying down more clay. And every so often stopping to step back and see what it looks like from different angles, to make sure it still flows with the design I've already sculpted. This side of the console being one of the most challenging parts so far. To provide a smoother and shinier surface, I'll warm it with a heat gun and buff it with my thumb. I think the parking brake switch is a bit too close to the edge of the piece, so I'm going to move it over a bit. After the switch is repositioned, the clay can be reformed around it. And then the clay is shaped to make it and the silver trim appear as one piece. There's really no point in getting most of the clay surfaces to their final level of detail yet. They would most likely get destroyed before I have the chance to 3D scan them, because somebody keeps walking all over the thing, putting little marks on it. I'll still make the pieces look nice though. Now, the area under the center stack gets built up to a steeper angle. Then, more clay is added to create a base for the USB ports. I, once again, decided the start button didn't look good there. I also think it might be difficult to press the button once the steering wheel is installed due to the location of the wiper stalk. So it's getting moved over here. With the slight resculpting of the bottom corner, the button now has enough room to be easily reached. And that's the last of the center dash components. You might have noticed the lack of a 12-volt power outlet. Well, that's not an accident. The 12-volt outlet will eventually be relocated to the trunk to charge a Moto Compacto I plan to have a storage space for. So, subscribe if you're interested in seeing that. Oh yeah, can't forget this little area on the driver's side. Like the passenger side, it too gets a wire support to mold the clay around. With all of the pieces now attached, it's time to start refining the shape. That means adding more clay in some places to add more detail, and filling low spots so it can be smooth. Then scraping and rubbing the whole thing to reach a more even finish. I forgot to carve a recess for the USB port, so I guess I'll get that done now too. While I was there, I decided to add more clay between the USB port and the start button to reshape the slope into the pocket, which I think looks better. After smoothing that back out, it can be finished off with my thumb and a heat gun. And for good measure, I move the start button again. Now with that done, this is what we're left with. I think this dash looks great. It's the best one I've ever designed anyways, but there's still plenty of work that needs to be done. Over on the driver's side, we need to put the gauge cluster in, but it doesn't fit at all. It's too large. So we're gonna have to do something about that. And also there's all the buttons that need to go on this side. And I need to figure out what to do with this area. And I've only got a little bit of clay left, so I need to wait for some more to arrive. So we'll tackle all that in the next episode, which I think should be the last episode of claying. I don't start recording a new video until the previous video has already been uploaded, so if you have any suggestions or feedback for the design of this dashboard, please let me know down in the comments. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.